I've got some updates regarding Ethan Klein, founder of the H3 podcast. He's actually suing a subreddit for copyright infringement, amongst other things. Some people think it's just him trying to expose who's behind some of the anonymous accounts that have been bullying him. I thought this would be interesting to cover as a podcaster and comedian myself. There is this weird sort of parasocial relationship that is had between commenters online and content creators. Some people decide not to address or fight the hate. Others try to, dig into it. And in this case, we've got Ethan Klein looking to find the identity of the people that are behind a lot of the harassment. I'm taking a complicated stance on this because I think Ethan Klein probably lives a little too much online, and yet I understand what the fight is all about. Let's dive right into this. I asked ChatGPT to explain for me a little bit of this lawsuit. I'm also going to share with you guys this update, which is Ethan Klein antagonizing a Snark subreddit in reference to their motion to quash. So a Snark subreddit is like a hater subreddit, and it's a group of people that like to hate on something that they otherwise used to like. I've covered Brianna Madia in the past, who actually exposed the identities of the people within her own Snark subreddit. She hired private investigators to expose who these people were. You know, it was a psychologists and therapists and teachers and nurses. And it was quite interesting to see someone, public facing in front of the camera expose people who otherwise thought they were protected. Anyway, I'll dive into my thoughts about that in a second. But essentially, and correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, Ethan Klein has filed legal motions seeking to uncover the identities of moderators of a certain subreddit, and that subreddit is the Snark, the H3 Snark. Now, Ethan Klein is worth somewhere between $25 to $100 million, depending on who you ask. He has made a fortune. I'm not going to get into his politics because I think a lot of the hate that he has comes from his opinions on things, what he has said in the past, people that feel they need to hold him accountable. I kind of live in that world where take everything on the internet like a buffet. If you don't want something, move on to the next dish. That's where I live. But people are allowed to rally together and try to talk to sponsors and get people canceled from projects. I mean, that's really their right, other than, they wouldn't be allowed to lie about somebody. But if they wanted to write to his sponsors or anybody's, they could. I just don't think it's worth anybody's time. Anyhow, the subreddit in question, H3 Snark, Ethan Klein's claim appears to stem from what he says is copyright infringement based. He asserts certain reaction videos on other platforms used his content with minimal added commentary, and that the subreddit moderators linked and promoted these reaction videos. So like if I were to make a video about Ethan Klein and I didn't comment up to a standard he would like, he would think that's copyright infringement, which is really tough to prove because at what level is your copyright infringed upon if you're adding any value to it? That's what my channel does, right? We'll play a bunch of clips and we'll add value by sharing my opinion. You might not think it's valuable, but the law does. So he requested and subpoenaed platforms like Reddit and Discord to reveal the IP addresses, emails, and identities of the moderators. So the moderators are arguing that the case is less about legitimate copyright infringement and more about silencing criticism. One filing states, on its face, the action is about copyright infringement. At its heart, the action is about stifling criticism and seeking retribution by unmasking individuals. My guess is that it is more about retribution than copyright infringement. He's pissed off. He's pissed off at his haters, which unfortunately just fuels your haters even more. So Ethan Klein says he claims that the reaction videos improperly used his original content. He also indicates that the subreddit's critical posts have gone beyond simple critique. He accuses participants of defamation, harassment, torturing his family, friends, falsifying images, interfering in his business. And my guess is he's probably right. They've probably made his life a living hell. And some people will argue, well, that's the price of doing business in the public eye. My thought is this, and maybe this is complicated. Maybe people might disagree. But my thought is, if you're going to enter the arena as a commenter, you are now putting yourself out there. And if he wants to try to find a way to expose you, I think that's fine. That'd be like if someone heckled me at a comedy show and I was like, hey, you're John Doe. You're the guy who owns a barbershop on Main Street. I think that's perfectly fair. Doxing traditionally is exposing someone's private information, their cell phone number, their home address, things like that. Identifying someone, to me, isn't considered doxing. It's just a fair conversation. If, the problem with the internet is people are willing to talk about other people in a way they never would to their face, ever. I've talked to many villains from reality shows and things like that, and I can attest with my own anecdotal evidence that people are generally kind in person, and yet online it brings out the worst of us. I'm not saying snark subreddits shouldn't exist, but it's one of those fuck around and find out kind of things where if he wants to come after you because of things you said online, you'll have the chance to defend yourself, but that's like consequences of actions. Now, they would absolutely, the anonymous people online, say, no, that's absolutely not true. Anonymity of moderators and online discourse. The case raises broader questions about whether moderators, especially of critical communities, can remain anonymous, and what happens when legal action seeks to unmask them. The moderator filing argues disclosure would chill free speech and have a real risk of being doxxed, stalked, or harassed, which is ironic because those are the actions being harassed that he claims are being taken onto him. So I understand people not wanting their anonymity or their identity exposed, but it's like these are the people that came together to criticize him. Now, and if you want to criticize, by all means, I think criticism's perfectly fine. It's just when it's anonymous and it brings out the worst of people, I think it's a fair fight if everyone's exposed. But I do understand and respect that people can try their best to remain anonymous. I think I'm always rooting for the content creators who expose, I call it troll patrol, those that expose the bad behavior. So Ethan had previously said this. I guess like 6 or 8 months ago, this subreddit says that they were going to go on break effective immediately, of course, because of these lawsuits. And he said, it won't save you scumbags from what's coming. I can't wait for your family, friends, work, and school to know what you've been up to. Now, at that stage, I still think it's a fair fight. If he can find out the identity of somebody who said mean things to him online and share that with that person's mom, like for instance, if there was a man online who was harassing my wife and I could find out who that man's wife was, and I went to that guy's house and knocked on his door and said, hey, just so you know, your husband's been harassing my wife. This is the kind of piece of shit that he is online. I would be perfectly fine doing that. I wouldn't try to fire a guy or have him. Just accountability for your actions. That's all. Here's what Ethan Klein had to say about the subreddit and their motion to quash, which is their motion to basically exit, say, Judge, I'd rather not be a part of this. And here's what he had to say.
Me of the snarkers' opposition to the motion to quash. They go on and on about how I'm afraid to live my life. I'm afraid at my job. It's costing me money. I can't sleep. And it's like, walk away.
Just stop doing it.
You don't have to
Turn
do
off your
it.
computer.
I
Turn off your
don't get
phone.
the luxury to walk away. I don't get to escape your fucking psycho, your lunatic's nonstop harassment and obsession with me. You can walk away. Just close your eyes. Turn off the monitor. You're free.
And you could argue that he could also do the same and not go online, and his life would probably be better. But at the same time, if they've had to deal with sponsors in other issues, it's complicated. So I could understand if people don't like my take and they say, no, this is about accountability. He said things that were wrong, or he said this word or that word. I think I've been pretty fair in my own sort of history of covering these things, that I kind of like err on the side of letting people say what they want and Also, if someone says something you disagree with, just go find other content to consume, right? We've had this with our coverage over Candace Owens, where some people say, how can you be platforming somebody? Well, just because you share a clip from somebody doesn't mean you endorse them. The internet, a very binary place. It has divided us into things you're pro and things you're against. And there's more nuance in real life. Ethan Klein and I don't share the same politics with, the war in the Middle East. There's plenty of things we don't share the same in, but at the same time, I understand he's a human who's online sharing his opinions, and the internet's allowed to comment and respond to that. But at what point does it cross the line into harassment or stalking or defamation and things like that? And that's kind of the question at hand. Very interesting conversation. I don't always read the comment sections, but I'm actually interested to hear what a lot of you guys have to say. Either you're Team Ethan here or Team Subreddit. If you know my history, I've had my own frustrations with subredditors, or I should say Redditors or any other online community who willfully mischaracterize things you say, holds you accountable till the end of time, don't ever expect you to be able to do better. And it's kind of a hard time to progress from that when it's just full of haters. So I understand Ethan's point, which is, if you don't like a guy, why do you exist in a community that's there just to keep dunking on him? That seems like you're poisoning yourself to try to make somebody else sick. I just don't get it. But respectfully, love to hear what you guys have to say. That's going to do it for us this afternoon. Gosh, can you believe we're almost ready for Friday? We'll see you later. I'm here twice a day, every day. We'll see you later. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.